What's up, it's Naz, and hello everyone, welcome back to The Letter. Last episode, we refused to fuck Luke because what sick bastard would ever want to do that? Monday couldn't come any sooner. After taking the floor plans from Miss Santos the day before the last, I spent most of my Sunday drawing up plans and calling in my suppliers. Although no design choices have been made yet, I'm quite sure they'd want high-end appliances, the most expensive materials, and the most pretentious everything. They usually did, these rich types, based from experience at least. Given how badly this whole thing started, it wouldn't hurt to be prepared. I have to check myself first, make sure I'm not playing with my gloves as one of the other building tenants takes the elevator up with me. It makes me self-conscious when the woman's eyes go over me, and I'm sure she was going to point out some perceived flaw in my physical appearance. But I'm saved from being paranoid when they went off a few floors later. Still, the ride up to my floor is nerve-wracking. The Wrights lived at the very top, the penthouse, the creme de la creme when it comes to condominium and urban living. Just getting access to the place is an ordeal of its own. I had to jump so many hoops, so many security checks just to secure a keycard, not only because of building management but because of the Wrights' personal security. It sometimes felt like I'm being interrogated for a crime and not visiting a client at their home. Even when their personal assistant called in to help out and verify my presence, the process is aggravated rather than hastened. Speaking of the devil. The elevator opens up and I'm greeted by none other than Whiskey's not-so-little lackey.
I do apologize if I kept Mr. and Mrs. Wright waiting, but I'm here now and I'm ready, so if I may, where are they?
They've just woken up, but they should be down soon. I'm surprised to see you made it through security, and only 5 minutes late.
You said I'd be through security soon, and it took half an hour. Define soon in this context.
I'd make myself comfortable if I were you. I'm going to go and put the kettle on.
About the tea, I don't want to intrude or anything.
The sir does not like being woken up by the whistling. But who am I to deny tea to a guest?
He shows me to the couch before drifting off towards the kitchen, quietly pulling out the teapot, cups, and all sorts of other things in preparation for tea. I ignore the animosity towards his employer that his words implied. I wouldn't be too surprised if Whiskey's own people don't like him. Accepting the quiet and isolation instead, I brace myself for what's to come. In this case, soon apparently means more than 5 minutes or even 10. I sit in their living room just waiting. And when the kettle starts whistling and the tea has been served, I continue to wait. At least the silence is relaxing. But then there's a crash. I nearly spill tea all over my lap in surprise, and I look up expecting security to come in. Even the man at the kitchen counter continues to fix breakfast like he has heard nothing. I don't want to speak up about it because he looks far too absorbed in his cooking and I don't want to be the cause of burnt food or worse. However, there's something in me that just wants to figure out what that was, although I am normally not this nosy. What should I do then? Check it out? Continue waiting? Let's check it out. The crash came from the hallway and I really shouldn't be snooping about. But it's just concern. Yeah, concern that urges me to check it out. Sneaking a glance at the butler, I consider sneaking off, but...
Excuse me, but where's the loo?
He barely looks my way before pointing a spatula towards the hallway. It's a good excuse as any. And if I'm caught lingering longer than I should, I could just excuse myself and say that I wasn't sure which door led to where. Uh-oh. Still, looking into the hallway reveals nothing. I don't see anything that might have caused the crash. The hallway, like the rest of the place, is in pristine condition. There are several doors for not only the toilet but also presumably rooms for their butler and other members of their staff. As I stand there, however, something feels definitely out of place. One of the doors, the nearest within my reach, stands ajar, and from inside a light flickers incessantly. It could simply be a light bulb that needs replacing. But the thought of it in a place so well taken care of seems odd, off. I think that maybe this is where the crash came from. Inside, I can spy a radio lying on the floor. That's probably it, right? Maybe one of the help in a hurry to get out of the room knocked over it in the process. If that's all it is, I should really leave it alone. As I turn to leave, the sound of static fills the air and a man's tiny voice interrupts the silence.
At 7 in the morning, students found a fifth year dead.
Why am I still standing there?
Assumed to have fallen from her dormitory window.
This seems familiar, doesn't it?
Authorities are investigating the possibility of foul play.
Like I've heard it before.
Reporting from St. Samthins, Shane McLaughlin of Galway Bay, AM.
Hello there! I recoil, backing away from whatever that was. In the process, I trip backwards on my feet and I wait for the pain falling flat on my back. But instead, I feel a hand on my back and see the smug smile of, well, guess who?
Oh, don't tell me you're reporting to work drunk, Mint.
Don't call us that. Of course, I know exactly who that voice belongs to. It just has to be him.
Marianne McCullough, hammered on the job? That would be something.
Who's that voice? But
Wouldn't dream of it, Whiskey. You're allowed to be if you wanted, though it's a bit early for it. So thanks for the save.
really, it was much appreciated. Even though the circumstances during our first meeting were not savory or wholesome, I can't bring myself to completely look at Mr. Wright in a bad light. Nothing came of it after all.
It's no trouble at all. I've been told I have a gift for catching pretty ladies, being a great catch myself.
Is that so? Would you say you'll be able to catch if another man were to pitch?
Perhaps, but I wouldn't know. I don't play baseball. Mint.
Right. Of course you don't.
I can't help but chuckle at my little joke, but it looks like it completely went over his head. If he had understood it, I guess it would have been inappropriate. He is my client after all. Speaking of which, where is Mrs. Wright? I have work to do, sir. Whatever little camaraderie I had with Whiskey is forgotten, however. I straighten up and glance behind him, only to find out he's on his own. Mrs. Wright is still absent. I still remember my place and why I'm here. To continue in such a manner with her husband would feel like a breach of trust between my client and I.
Since you are here, I don't suppose Mrs. Wright is on her way down? It is 10:30 after all.
She'll be down here in a moment. For now, you have me.
Great.
Can't I just chat with a good friend?
I don't think a night where we talk like two drunk Egypts makes us good friends. And if you have any bit of sense, it's better to forget that night ever happened.
What? Why not? It was a good night, if a bit boring.
You know exactly why. We both know what your intentions were that night. And to find out that you're married, if there's even an ounce of decency in you, if you'd like the world to be a little less messed up, you'll remember your wife and what you almost did to your Mrs. Wright.
You little scumbag. It's better to get that out of the way once and for all.
Well, no need to be such a killjoy about it.
The dead air between us, because it can't be anything else but that, is broken as a lively voice calls out from the loft.
Marianne! I hope I haven't kept you waiting too long. I know we agreed we'd start at 10 o'clock, but mornings just simply do not agree with me. Not one bit. It's been like this since I've been in university.
It's 5 minutes to 11 o'clock. These high-end clients sure like to be fashionably late. I'm used to it though, much like how I'm used to so many years of hearing people mispronounce my name. Besides, berating or correcting my client would be extremely impolite, and Marianne doesn't sound too bad when she says it. To be fair, it doesn't seem like she's late on purpose.
I see you're up, darling. You know, you could have woken me up as well. Were you showing Marianne around? Not that there's much to see. This place is so tiny compared to the mansion.
I'm more worried about the way she stares at me, judging. Such a look. It doesn't suit her pretty face at all. Just seeing Mrs. Wright reminds me too much of her. And maybe I'm starting to hear her again, see her again when I shouldn't. I should have left it all behind, forgotten it. To think she would have been looking at me that way, I can just feel my hands tremble.
Oh yes, just showing her around and getting to know each other. Isn't that right, Marianne?
Yes, that's quite right, Whiskey.
Yes, of course. And your butler was making breakfast a while ago. So if you want to get right to that...
Breakfast would be lovely.
There's no denying clients when they invite me over to the table. Though it is too personal to share a meal in their home, it would be terribly rude to deny their invitation. Besides, the pancakes did look and smell heavenly. A bowl of clotted cream, fruits, syrups, jams, and other spreads are laid out next to them, making a colorful arrangement. If this was a brunch with friends, I would have gladly helped myself to the whole lot. But as it is, I accepted just a few pieces of pancakes and topped it off with lemon and sugar.
You know, I was a tiny bit serious when I said I wanted a helipad.
And you're not serious about the greenhouse, the vineyard, and the stables.
Well, I do want those too, but I know you'll agree to those.
We're talking about interiors here, honey. You don't handle exterior designs and whatever handles those sorts of projects do you, Marianne?
Well, we used to be an architect.
I'm able, actually, and willing to take a project of that nature. I was an architect in Ireland before. Of course, that's another contract entirely. I also suggest we finish the house itself before working on any additions to the rest of the property. There won't be any problems about ownership this time, will there? Pardon if I'm crossing a line, but the acquisition was rather quick.
Oh, don't you worry. We've got everything sorted this time around. I've talked to Miss Cooper and Mr. John from BRC, as well as the old owners. Everything has been paid in full, and all we're waiting for is the paperwork from the land registry. They're letting us move in as soon as we please. It's not like they were living there in the first place.
That's good to hear. The problems that could arise from renovating another person's home would be... well, let's not dwell on it.
What about renovating a ghost home?
First off, we'll want to know how you want the place to look. It's pretty furnished as is, but I understand if you want to modernize the whole thing.
Actually, I'd prefer to keep the place looking as it is. But at the same time, I want modern appliances.
Of course you do.
You worked on the Ludgate's Christchurch summer residence. I do remember there being an oven I thought was a simple drawer before. Make them look vintage, antique, blended with the rest of the decor.
Customize appliances then. I can't find someone for that, and if you can't tell me what you specifically want, it'll hasten up the process. We're talking about electronic appliance manufacturers. If you have a preferred brand to work with.
Splendid! So, what is next on our agenda? All the other interior designers we've hired in the past did not have us this involved.
I stop. What sort of half-baked designer did that? If I knew who they were, I would have words. This isn't the time or place for that, however. Instead, I use this brief pause to pull out the floor plans I brought with me.
We'll have to figure out what you want to do with the rooms. Here, we can have a quick run through.
What is that little room next to the master's bedroom?
Oh, as far as I could tell when I saw it, it's a second bedroom of sorts. Used, apparently, for the ladies in waiting who has served Lady Charlotte Ermengarde. Which is strange, as that isn't the norm for these sorts of houses.
Something tells me that's connected with a ghost.
Well, we're not stuffing Johans in there. He won't fit. You don't suppose we could turn it into a walk-in closet and a dressing room?
I love fashion, but do we really need to turn an entire room into a walk-in closet, dear? We'll have large closets and a wardrobe in the bedroom already.
Says the one who takes 3/5 of our closet. Well, what do you suggest we do with it?
I thought a utility room of some sort would be nice. A craft room where I can do fun things.
Like die?
Or maybe a children's room might be nice. You know, for when Kylie comes over. Or if Rochelle visits once she's had a baby.
You mean when Rochelle visits when she's had Luke's baby?
1, you are not inviting that witch. And 2, there's a whole mansion for Kylie to play in.
To get lost in and get killed by the ghost.
We don't need a children's room, and you don't even do arts and crafts. I'd like to turn the guest's room and the study into my personal office, by the way, if you don't mind.
You can turn it into a personal office if I can have my utility room. It's just the one room of the many. I'm taking that room for myself, no matter what you say, dearie. So you might as well take this deal. You're always out doing business anyway. The real problem is the theatre. Whatever are we going to do with all that space?
Fine, we could turn it into our own personal cinema, I suppose. Might as well have it, if you plan on not having a telly in the parlor.
Yes, well, I don't want guests to be glued to the telly when they come over for a meal and some tea. By the looks of things, we can keep the rooms as what they are on the ground floor, though. The ballroom would be perfect for parties.
Do we really need a dining hall, though? I don't suppose we can't convert it into a garage.
What for? You can park your cars outside.
What about that room? Right there, in the northeast corner.
That's sleeping quarters for the household help?
Oh, that is perfect! Johans will be glad if we have other staff members who stayed in.
All those staff members are gonna die.
It'd be convenient so they don't have to make the trip from Luxbourne to the mansion when they're needed.
You'll definitely need a lot more people to maintain a property of this size.
The mansion is really a lot bigger than I thought. Look at all these rooms. I didn't even know there was a music room next to the parlor because of what happened.
There was a grand piano in there too, when we checked during the tour.
Did you hear that, Luke? Maybe you can take up playing the piano again.
Luke used to play the piano.
Oh, you should have seen him when we were younger, Marianne.
It's not like I was very good with the thing.
Luke's fucking blushing?
Oh, hush you. You were no Mozart, but I loved hearing you play nonetheless. He'd come over to my home and he'd play such fun tunes. He'd sing too and I'd dance and it was just...
Mr. Wright playing the piano. I can't imagine it. But the earnest way in which Mrs. Wright said so told otherwise.
Anyway, what do you think of these plans, Marianne?
I think they're all great.
Are we not even going to consider one of my requests? Not even just a closet or just a garage?
Or the helipad.
Now, that isn't fair, is it? You're not the only one who's going to be living here.
I hardly see how that's unfair. I told you you're getting your office and your theatre, the greenhouse, the vineyard and the stables. That sounds fair, does it not, Marianne?
Well, yeah, it sounds fair. Mrs. Wright has her points, though I really don't want to butt in a spat of a husband and wife. But with the way the two were looking at me to sell this, I might as well just keep to the facts instead of giving an opinion.
Mr. Wright, your plan isn't quite feasible from an architectural perspective. I'm not even sure how much we can do without closer inspection. Well, the one about the garage, at least. A walk-in closet is easy enough, but the garage?
See, a garage isn't architecturally feasible and it isn't going to be financially sound as well. We're already going to spend a lot on your other requests. You have several acres of land to park on already.
What? Did you calculate that on the fly? Financially sound my foot. You're probably just thinking up of imaginary numbers.
Wasn't Hannah a financial manager?
Might I remind you that I was a financial manager? I also looked over and approved the expenses of our other houses. I know the rough cost of these things by now, love.
Don't mess with your waifu, Luke.
Masters in Business Administration, major in accounting. Sometimes I think you forget that I'm not as dumb as I act.
That catches my attention more than anything. It sounds more unbelievable than Whiskey playing the piano. He really didn't seem like the type.
Business administration and accounting? What university?
Luxborn U, of course. Go Lux Dragons, red and gold.
Excuse me, how about we move on this chit-chat ahead and do whatever else needs to be done sometime today? I had to cancel my appointments for this, you know. We might as well do a proper inspection with the designer this time, just to get it out of the way.
Oh, we're going back to the fucking mansion?
Yes, no time like the present. You want a thorough inspection? Might as well do it now.
Fuck.
We actually took another look at the property yesterday, though it was brief. But I'm sure you would want to see it yourself, to spot anything we might have missed.
It's not like I have much of a choice, do I? Riding to the Ermengarde mansion in their rice is an awkward affair. Not only am I worried about scuffing the expensive leather seats, but I'm also worried about getting in the middle of another couple's spat. With the tension thick in the air, I can feel them staring at each other anytime. Nobody's saying anything, up until Mr. Wright tells his valet to turn the damn radio off, and for a moment I think that he might start. But instead he just stays quiet, and so do the rest of us. In the end, the sufferable silence stays. Ah, here we go again. I have never been so glad to see a house, and I have never been so terrified in my life. Stepping out of the car and up to the mansion meant the end of an uncomfortable ride, and I can finally take a deep breath of fresh air. The beauty of the place never fails to make me gaze and wonder every time I see it as well. Mrs. Wright moves up towards the door, keys in hand, and I can already hear Mr. Wright plotting.
Alright, Hans, we're going to go in, but I want you to look around the place. Familiarize yourself with it. Know every nook and cranny, every inch of the lot. Go and see where we can put that vineyard and the other things we talked about. We'll want to know where to station security as well, so go around the perimeter and figure it out.
Isn't the lot a huge amount of acres?
Scouts the property and circles the perimeter on foot.
Johannes doesn't like that.
You do know this is 46 acres of land, sir.
Exactly.
Well, you are not driving a car over the grass. Put those long, spidery legs of yours to good use. I didn't hire you to stand around and look intimidating. Go, mush.
Johannes, I feel you. Someday I'd like to ask how Johannes can even stand and tolerate the man. Why doesn't he just quit? Certainly the pay can't be that good. Even I'm a bit put off by our mutual employer, and the only thing that keeps me from bailing is the fact that we've already signed a contract. At least I'll be working with them during the duration of the project. He works with them every day.
Sometimes I think you hired me to make me suffer for your amusement.
Maybe, just maybe. Someday I'd ask. I feel a bit bad for him. If it's any consolation, he'll be away from Mr. Wright, if only for a little while. We're able to enter the mansion after a bit of standing out there in the sun. This wretched, strange sunlight that is far too alien and rare. There had been a bit of a problem, with the missus not knowing which key was which. The first item on the agenda would be the grand staircase. It seemed sturdy during the open house, but a closer inspection might say otherwise. There was no obvious marks or damage, nor wear and tear, probably rethreaded during the renovations. Peeking under the grand carpet, the wood is properly installed with the bark placed down to prevent cupping. The carpet itself could use a vacuum though. Structural conditions, from what I can see without actually dismantling the thing, look to be in good shape, and the handrails and support posts are firm. The work on it should be commended, but all the workers who renovated the mansion are all missing, right? I can't look much more into the rest of the foyer, however, Mr. Wright starts to hurry us into checking the dining hall.
So what do you think? Certainly we can't turn this area into a garage.
It's Jacobean architecture. I'd say these would be pilasters and not buttresses, but you never really know. They really liked mixing up these elements. You could say it was pretty avant-garde at the time. We might hit a support beam if we're not careful.
And in layman's terms?
From what I see here, we could risk great damage to the house if we try to turn the dining hall into a garage.
The man didn't look too pleased at this. There's a look of disappointment before he sighs and looks around the place with an air of defeat. When he moves to speak, I dread another unreasonable demand. Again.
This will stay a dining hall then. But if I may have another request instead, at least spruce the place up with some flowers, some plants or something. It feels so old and dead in here.
That's hardly unreasonable. Daffodils are a must, I presume.
The look that passes between the two of them, there's a genuine look of fondness there. This is the first time I've seen such an exchange between the two of them. If anyone are to see them like this, there's little doubt that they loved each other.
Of course, and I want a garden full of them. Now, if you excuse me, I'd like to look at the rest of the house. I'll just be around here downstairs, if anybody needs me.
That leaves Mrs. Wright and I.
He's quite fond of them, you know.
I can imagine. He looked terribly upset when we told him he can't have his garage.
I meant the daffodils. We always have a vase full of them in every house we own. I'd like to think. They may be about his mother. He never talks about her. I don't even know her name.
Is this gonna lead to some sad backstory on why Luke's an asshole?
He likes to flatter, claim that they remind him of me, but he's always loved the flowers, even before we married.
Much like the piano, I didn't take him for a person who liked flowers. Daffodils least of all. What's next? Am I going to find out that Mr. Wright saves kittens from burning buildings?
I'll go and snoop about upstairs. You go and do whatever it is that you have to do.
When she goes without even asking if I need her here, I'm left standing to stare at the walls. Really, I don't need to do a thorough inspection of the building itself. It isn't really part of an interior designer's job. But the architect in me is committed to doing this task with every project. If I'm going to make a living space that have both form and function, I might as well make sure the entirety of it is safe for my clients. Since I'm already here, I roam around the dining hall to check off my punch list, if you will. But when it's time to move on, I hesitate. Mr. Wright said he would be somewhere here on the ground floor, and I really didn't want to be alone with whiskey. I have to look through the place eventually, sure, but on the other hand, I can do it later when he's gone. I can go upstairs first if I want to. Which floor should I go first? Let's see, Luke is on the ground floor and Hannah's on the first floor. I feel safer with her than with Luke. I've already seen enough of this floor during the open house. Of course, I know that's just a convenient excuse. I don't want to be in the same room as Whiskey anytime soon. So I might as well just go upstairs first. The banisters on the grand staircase's landings are solid and at proper height. Any lower and they would be terrible. There's a small catch in the carpet though, but as long as nobody tries to run down the stairs until it gets fixed, things should be alright, and that's why Isabella tripped. And the stained glass? Art. Restored, no doubt, in the image of the last lady and Lord of Ermengarde. Or it was supposed to be until Lady Charlotte's fiancé was brutally murdered. Ooh, we're finally getting some lore in the mansion. By a witch. A witch of all things, from what I've read. You'd think the historians of this place would have had a lot more scrutinizing, filtering out stuff like that. I'm amazed they bothered with it, instead of replacing it with some generic cookie-cutter design. This entire place alone would have cost roughly 500, even £1 million. Lady Charlotte Ermengarde and her beloved. Looking at the mosaic, it's not too far a stretch of the imagination to believe that the depicted images could be Mr. and Mrs. Wright. It could easily be assumed as such if one doesn't know the history of the mansion. Really, a place like this should be protected by the government as a landmark. But what can I do about it? Walking into the east wing, I try to go into the theater but is met with an obstacle. The obstacle that is locked doors. 2 doors. 2 and both of them are locked. I'd be frustrated. Would be if I hadn't already snuck off while the Wrights were having their little business meeting with Miss Cooper before taking a peek. With what Mr. Wright wanted, we'd have to install a powerful projector, the type they would use in cinemas, and a projection screen. The seats would have been reupholstered if they're to be any comfortable, and the walls will have to be covered in dark material, paint, wallpaper, or insta-wall-to-wall carpeting. Really, all of the rooms I could be jealous of, it's this one. I could just picture myself in there watching old kung fu flicks on a weekend-long marathon. Makes me wonder what kind of movies Mrs. Wright would like. Rom-coms, perhaps? Her husband, on the other hand, I'd rather not think about it. In the middle of my notation and planning, I don't even realize that I'm not alone, until I'm caught standing in front of a locked door like a fool.
Were you meaning to go in there? I'm afraid we won't be able to open it up today.
Oh well, I wanted to, but it's fine. I can still survey the rest of the place.
Apologies, but the key was missing when they were handed over. They told us that they'd get right back to us with it.
What? But aren't they supposed to hand over all the keys once property changes hands? That can be grounds to file a complaint.
They were already kind enough to let us move in so early. There's no need to raise a fuss about it. Worst comes to worst, we can call for a locksmith.
The air is heavy and somber when she grows quiet and glances out the window, out towards the vast expanse that surrounded what would be their house, their home. Then she looks back at me with a sigh and bitter smile.
Flowers. Yellow flowers. Daffodils, dandelions, and sunflowers and the sort all up front. Just a whole garden of them. They'll make the house look lovely, won't they?
Of course. A garden is a wonderful addition to any home.
As I say this, her eyes roam over me, scrutinizing and thoughtful. I have to hold back the shiver that threatens to run down my spine at being inspected so closely.
Yes, it must be nice.
We're still talking about the gardens, yes?
I mean not having to worry about what another person thinks of you.
What do you mean by that?
She lifts her hand and points to her wedding ring before it falls listlessly to her side.
Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I didn't marry Luke. There'll be no fights about walk-in closets or silly helipads. I could do with this place as my heart desires until there's nothing but content. Then again, I wouldn't have bought this place if it wasn't a gift for him. I probably wouldn't even be in Luxbourne if it wasn't for him. Maybe I would have moved to London, Manchester, or Birmingham. I might have even left the country altogether. France, Germany, Spain, Canada, Sweden, even America. The possibilities would have been endless.
I don't know what to say about that. What is there to say?
I'm sorry, I must sound so petty and ungrateful. I do love him. So very much, even if he can be a bit difficult at times.
Oh no, not at all. I'm just confused why you're telling me this, of all people.
Just a whim, I think. Just flights of fancy, that's all. Don't you ever think about one decision you've made in your life and wonder how much would change if you chose to do things differently?
You mean like in the branching out visual novel?
I try not to dwell on the past, ma'am.
The key word is try, of course. Thinking of the past brings up too many ghosts. Memories of her. And I do wonder what would change if I said yes when she asked of me. Maybe she'd still be with me. I return to the present. Just like I said, I try not to dwell on the past. Why don't you decide on your own? You must have been quite the pair. Her worries seem simple enough. I mean, it doesn't have to be as difficult as she makes it out to be, right?
Why don't you decide on your own?
I meant nothing against Mr. Wright, of course, though whiskey buggered me to no end. By law, she would be the owner of the house. Well, unless they signed a joint property of ownership anyway, which is a rare thing as far as I know, especially among these highbrow types. Sure, they could actually love their spouse, I don't doubt the possibility. But money is money and it makes people do the most horrible things sometimes.
It's your house. You can paint the whole place pink if you want, and there's not much he can do.
The somber expression she had changes to a look of contempt.
I could, but we are husband and wife. Equal partners in marriage, Marianne, though I can see that you don't understand. This is his home as much as it is mine. I'm not going to go behind his back over a room. And how dare you suggest that?
Oh, she's angry. How do I even talk her down without causing further offense? It's in my attempt to shake off my own drama that I end up tripping right into theirs. Because really, I have no business meddling in the affairs of my clients unless it involved interior design or architecture. Yet here I am, opening my mouth and yapping. I do hate to see a good woman down.
That's not what I meant by it. I just mean that maybe you don't have to get the approval of your husband all the time. Or well, okay, fine. I know nothing about married life, Mrs. Wright. You're right about that. But I still think you're allowed your indulgences every now and then.
Of course, my form of indulgence meant buying old state country records which I don't even dare to use with my gramophone. For her, it could very well be buying entire houses.
That's just my take on it. A perfect relationship is as rare as hen's teeth. You got what you got. I mean, you're doing well enough without my advice. Sure, look it.
That looks to placate her somewhat. She looks away and starts to favor the view outside once more with a faraway look in her eyes.
Feel free to look around the rest of the house. Everything but the theatre should be open. Just call if there's need of me.
Of course, Mrs. Wright.
I really shouldn't have opened my big mouth in the first place. This sort of thing only gets me in trouble. Keep it clean, keep it simple, and stick to business. That's it. Be professional. But I failed to do that just because of a pretty face. When she turns to leave, she glances back at me before disappearing into the foyer. I look out the window from where she was standing, and I move on, alone with nothing but my thoughts and her.
Finally, some peace and quiet. Thought the old biddy would never leave.
It's utter madness, this hearing things. I reckon it's the stress, though I don't know what exactly I'm stressed about. If meeting Mrs. Wright has really thrown me for a loop, I'd be worried. If I'm developing some sort of psychosis or disorder, well, I'd call a doctor. But hopefully it isn't that, not right here and not right now. I mean, it could just be that personal talking cricket, the conscience, so to speak, and I'm only noticing it now, though if it is, it isn't very helpful. Pushing the dilemma of voices in my head aside, I go back to work. But I can barely make it a few steps before everything tilts and shifts. I don't really stumble, but it feels like I'm being thrown off my feet, and the rest of the world just follows. Though my feet stay firmly on the ground, and even if I stay mostly upright, I feel like I've been heaved and put off balance. I have to close my eyes in the hopes of willing the sudden sense of vertigo away, and when I open them, fuck. Fuck! Well, I don't feel any less sick because of the sight that greets me. Blood dripped from the walls and the ceiling, pooling downwards and seeping into the curtains and the carpet. A wave of nausea stronger than the last hits me along with the overpowering stench of blood and gore. I want to bolt, the rational part of my head is telling me to flee. And I would have gladly done as it asked if only if I didn't hear her.
In here, Marion. Come on, I have something to show you.
Ah, hell no! I could have ignored it, would have ignored it, if I only heard it in my head. But I swear that this time it's coming from one of those rooms. Much further into the study. And I feel compelled to pay attention, I can't just turn around and leave. Not when it's her. I don't even think as I follow the sound of her voice. Fuck? What? What? Hello? Lorraine. Lovely Amanda Lorraine, let's say I'm not gonna pronounce that. She was my friend, the only one I had at St. Samthans. I was a scholar, the charity case, in a school for privileged and prestige young girls. They all looked down at me, if they cared to look at me or acknowledge my presence at all. All except her.
Oh, stop your crying. You know better than to listen to Maeve. Why I gotta teach that butterface a lesson?
Wait, no, lass! I don't want you getting into trouble with the sisters again!
Relax. It's not like I'm going to stomp her and her lackey's arses flat like last time.
Come on, let's just go back to our dorm room. I don't want to be on my Tobler while you go get yourself punished.
You'll be fine. Gip's there with you.
Lorraine was there when I needed her, through my highs and lows. Having her as a friend made being in a strange school away from my father all the more tolerable. She saw this poor helpless girl who was kept down and shunned by everyone else, and being the kind soul that she was, she rescued me. So brave, so beautiful. She was something else.
I'll eat all the chocolates stashed away in your closet if you go.
I can get more. Just don't go complaining to me if you get a tummy ache because of that.
There are too many waifus in this game, I can't resist.
Well, you don't want to get detention on a weekend, do you? It's a Friday. We can go to town and have some karaoke. And we can have a go at druids and demons again. You're not going to miss that just because of Maeve, are you?
Sometimes I question what I did to deserve a friend like her. In the darkest corners of my mind where traitorous thoughts lurked, I thought that she only felt sorry for me. Maybe she was just being a good Samaritan offering a helping hand. And perhaps I had been too selfish to return the favor.
You have a point. I'll just kick her arse on Monday then.
That's not what I mean!
I know what you mean, Em.
Wait, where are you going? You just told me you wouldn't cause trouble.
I still have something to do. Don't worry, it's not like I'm going to burn down her dorm room or something criminal like that. I'm just going to talk to her. Maybe I'll make it so that her room smells like a dog's air biscuit. That'll make it an excellent weekend. I'll see you in a bit, Marianne. Lots of tumblers.
Because when she told me that she loved me, I couldn't admit that I felt the same way. Not to her and not even to myself. It was wrong. I was taught that way. Husband and wife, one man and a woman. Unclean, impure. I prayed for her and I, for our sins and for salvation. I wanted to apologize for disregarding her feelings so callously. It must have been like a slap to the face for her. But life had gotten in the way. Exams, which were trivial in hindsight now, took top priority. I had to keep my grades up to keep my scholarship, for my father. I told myself I wouldn't apologize to her when those were over, that I needed to focus first and not let anything distract me. It had been easy when she avoided me like the plague. She was upset, I get that. Fuck. No! I thought I had the time to make things right, but...
At 7 in the morning, students found a 5th year dead. Assumed to have fallen from her dormitory window.
They told us that it was an accident. That was the official statement. But I knew better. She was dead because of me.
Maeve had a hook and I kicked the bucket, didn't she?
Fuck!
Ding dong, the witch is dead!
She had, though she didn't say which, Lorraine.
But at least Maeve had the courage to admit how she felt about me.
I don't even know how long I've been stuck here in a trance. In the mirror, Lorraine smiles at me. She's as beautiful as I remember her. But then... Fuck! I feel bile rise up in my throat as her clean image warps into how she looked like when they found her dead, lying on the cold, hard ground. Good Saint Dympha, great wonder worker in every affliction of mind and body, help me. I'm seeing things, hearing things. Am I going completely insane? Looking everywhere but at her, I hope and pray that it's enough to will whatever this is to go away. It doesn't even immediately register in my head that I can just leave.
You, on the other hand, can't even look me in the eye.
This isn't real. You're not. You're dead!
I'm dead. Because of you. And you won't even look at me. Look at me.
Fuck! My breathing quickens and I can feel my heart being torn apart by her words.
I'm so sorry, Lorraine.
Look at me!
I can't take it in because she's right. It was my fault. The least I can do is look at what I've done. Lorraine, broken and bleeding, looks at me with such hate-filled eyes. An unnatural smile stretches across her face and I can only see malice in it. Shit! Fuck! No! Not killing our Irish waifu here! Then she lunges as the mirror ripples around her form, the glass parting like the water's surface from her. She grips my shoulders and I can feel her nails dig deep, sharp even through the fabric of my clothes.
There you are.
Fuck! Oh shit! No! Nope, nope, no, 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 no! Fuck you! Fuck off!
Why don't you love me?
Apologies spill through my lips as tears cloud my vision, but I won't give in to this madness. With every bit of strength I have left, I struggle to get away from her. Fear grips and threatens to choke me. I endure, I escape. And without turning back, I stumble out. In my panic, I don't even care to look where I'm going. With one hand on the wall to steady me, I just hobble as fast as I can away from the study. Away from that mirror. Freedom is bittersweet. I'm free from the madness, it seems, as running out into the hallway reveals it to be in pristine condition. But it means I've turned my back on Lorraine again. I have no plans of stopping, not until I know I'm safe. And if that means walking back to Luxborn, as ridiculous as the idea is, then so be it. Suddenly, someone grabs hold of me, however. Fingers digging deep into my shoulder and my heart nearly stops. My body seizes and I nearly scream.
Marianne, you look awful. I mean, not awful, but did something happen? Are you alright?
Mrs. Wright, I...
Without thinking, I sought comfort, seeing that it wasn't her. It's a sudden impulsive thing to do, and had I been in better condition, I wouldn't even dare to do such a thing. But I didn't know what else to do. Though I know I shouldn't, her warmth, her scent, they grounded me. She is intoxicating.
Marianne, what's going on? Oh, you're shaking like a leaf.
Tremors run through my body as soon as my mind realized I'm no longer in danger. I wanted to cry, scream about what I've seen, but like a scared child, I couldn't control myself. My mind couldn't reconcile with what I've seen. I should just write it off as a figment of my imagination, yet I can still feel her nails cutting into my skin.
Are you sick? Should I call for a doctor?
I'm sorry, Mrs. Wright. Just feeling a little woozy and lightheaded is all.
Let's get you somewhere to sit down then. Come on, don't worry, I have you.
A lie. But a whole lot less complicated than telling her I was attacked by a dead girl. When the feeling of fear eases off, I feel nothing but shame for my actions. I quickly back away as I clear my throat and nod my
I
thanks.
think I've had enough looking around. If it's all right with you and Mr. Wright, I'll meet you outside.
If you're sure, I'll have the car started. Do you need assistance heading downstairs?
I'm all right, ma'am. Just go on ahead and I'll be right there.
It seems to placate her worries, though only for a brief second. Before she heads down, I don't miss a concerned glance she shoots my way, hidden quickly under another smile. I won't begrudge her for it. That worry. The look on my face must have been a strange enough sight on its own. Even I am still reeling from whatever that was. Her voice still whispers in my ears. After all these years, she's still... No, Marianne. Shaking my head off the thoughts, I drag in a breath, then follow shortly after Mrs. Wright. Whatever has happened in the past is long gone, only memories now, and those are things I can no longer bring back. Holy shit. And that was this episode of The Letter, everyone. It seems that Marianne has her own ghost to deal with. Where will this end? Stay tuned for more episodes of The Letter. Like and subscribe so we could grow our channel together. Once again, my name is Nez and thanks for watching. See you all next time. Bye everyone!